My fiancé, Alexander, who had been engaged to me for years, abandoned me in the countryside to fend for myself for the sake of his crush. 3 years later, he came to pick me up, bringing his crush along. He said, "It's been 3 years. Even a dog should have learned by now. I'm doing this for your own good. If you don't change your temper, don't ever expect to become a proper wife of the Law family." Everyone thought I would cry and complain about the grievances and longing I'd suffered over the years, clinging to him desperately, but I just smiled calmly. "Sorry, Mr. Law, I'm already married." Chapter 1. I had just returned from the market, holding the vegetables I'd bought. From a distance, I saw several luxury cars parked outside the old Law family mansion. These were all cars I hadn't seen in the past few years. As I approached the gate, I overheard voices inside, loud and mocking. "It's been 3 years. Wonder what the heiress looks like now. Has she turned into a country bumpkin? She's no heiress. She's just a homeless orphan staying at the Law house. She thinks she's some real heir?" Exactly. She's got no blood connection to the Law family. They were kind to her, or she wouldn't even be living. She'd be worse than a beggar. Evelyn was just young and ignorant. After 3 years, she must have learned her lesson. A soft voice interrupted their conversation, bringing a brief moment of silence to the courtyard. That voice, I recognized it. It was Helen's, the woman Alexander had been doting on. 3 years ago, when her father passed away in a car accident, Alexander had brought her to stay at the Law house, and I had been sent to the countryside. When I was sent away, he said, "Helen's lost her family. And yet you speak so harshly. She's always been kind to you. Don't you have a conscience? When you've learned to behave, when you're sensible, that's when I'll let you come back. Otherwise, you'll stay there for the rest of your life. I'm doing this for your own good. If you don't change, you'll never be able to be the wife of the Law family." For my own good? What a nice excuse. For my own good. He chose to favor Helen in that situation. For my own good. He dumped me in the countryside and ignored me? He knew my emotions were on the verge of collapsing back then. Hearing this now only feels ironic. Helen was kind. She didn't hold it against her. If it were me, I'd make sure she stayed there for a few more years. Helen spoke softly. "Evelyn is still part of the Law family." Then, her eyes reddened slightly. "Helen, don't be sad. That idiot has already been punished. What do you think her expression will be when she sees us?" "That's easy. She'll definitely cry her heart out. Then beg Alexander to take her back." Alexander snorted. 3 years. And even a dog should have learned some manners. If not, she can stay here for some more re-education. A chorus of agreement followed. I'm actually looking forward to her not having learned anything. That way, I'll never have to see her again. Yeah, I can't stand her shameless face. But I think you still have an engagement with her, right? A voice came from the crowd, filled with uncertainty. Helen turned her head toward Alexander, her eyes filled with expectation. Engagement? Let's see how she behaves. Upon hearing Alexander's words, Helen's gaze shifted away in disappointment. At this point, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I didn't try to hide it. The sound carried on the rising breeze, startling a group of small turtles in the yard. The person closest to the door turned around, a surprised and confused expression on their face as they shouted, "Evelyn?" Chapter 2. His shout immediately drew everyone's attention in the small courtyard. Is that really Evelyn? How is that possible? Wasn't she supposed to have turned into a country bumpkin by now? I could hear their discussion clearly, and I understood why they were so shocked. In their imaginations, I had been abandoned in the countryside for 3 years, and surely had become a dowdy, haggard village girl by now. But I didn't look like that at all. I wore a well-fitting dress, with a thin knit sweater over it, and a camera hanging around my neck. My hair and skin were well maintained, and I even had a nude-colored manicure. Not a trace of a country bumpkin was left. Alexander's gaze slowly fell on me, and he seemed a little surprised. "Evelyn." He called my name, his tone distant. It was completely different from the way he spoke to Helen. I used to resent this. Back in the day, I used to cry and throw tantrums. But now, I didn't feel that way anymore. "Mr. Alexander, I shifted the basket of vegetables to my other hand and greeted him politely. At my words, Alexander furrowed his brow slightly. It's just been 3 years. Is there really a need to be this cold? I'm your fiancé. And this is how you speak to me? It seems that 3 years was too short. You still haven't learned your lesson. If you keep acting like this, I'll really cancel our engagement. I gave him a brief, indifferent glance. Why would he think I still liked him after 3 years? When I was 10 years old, I became an orphan. Grandpa Law took me in, and right then and there, he announced my engagement to Alexander. From that moment, I knew I was going to marry Alexander. So, I indulged myself and slowly fell in love with him in his warmth. At the height of my feelings, he too once said he loved me. He also said that once I was of the right age, we'd get married. Until Helen was brought into the Law household, everything changed. I watched as the affection that was mine was slowly stolen away. Watched him unconditionally favor her. I cried. I threw tantrums, and even intentionally picked fights with Helen. But in return, all I got was blame and anger. Then, one day, Helen's necklace disappeared. Alexander was the first to find me and accuse me. Although I didn't like Helen, I wasn't so shameless as to steal from her. Besides, during that time, my 8-year-old cat had fallen ill and had to be hospitalized. That cat was a gift from Alexander for my birthday. To take care of it, I rented a place near the vet and hadn't returned to the Law household for a long time. I confronted Alexander with my head held high, but to my shock, her necklace was found in a piece of clothing I hadn't worn in ages. Alexander slapped me. He also broke the only heirloom my parents had left me. Seeing the bracelet shattered into pieces on the ground, I went mad and rushed toward Alexander. In the chaos, Helen fell down the stairs. Later, I was sent to the countryside by Alexander, and my little cat didn't survive that summer. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Alexander's expression grew impatient. Just as he was about to explode, I raised my hand and showed him the ring. Sorry, Mr. Law, I'm already married. Hearing this, Alexander's frown deepened. Helen stepped forward and wrapped her arm around Alexander's, looking at me with the expression of someone humoring a child throwing a tantrum. Evelyn, don't lie. I heard from Alexander that he froze your bank cards. So how could you afford all these clothes? You're still young. Don't let those unsavory people deceive you. As soon as she spoke, Alexander's gaze shifted to my clothes, and his eyes gradually grew colder. I guess he was reminded of the fact that he had cut off all my financial sources. In their eyes, without the Law family's money, I had no right to wear such fine clothes. One of his friends sneered. Evelyn, you weren't being kept, were you? In this desolate countryside, the person who's keeping you wouldn't be some old man who can't find a wife, right? Alexander's expression immediately darkened, his face full of anger as he looked at me. Evelyn, do you have no shame? You may have no shame, but don't embarrass the Law family. Seeing him like this, it was obvious he thought I had fallen into depravity and become someone's mistress. But Alexander, how many years have we known each other? Even if you no longer care for me, surely you know who I am. In your eyes, am I really the kind of person who would become someone's mistress just for money? I looked around the courtyard and coldly said, I should be the one asking if any of you have any shame. You all came all the way here just to go crazy? I, Evelyn, am not like any of you useless people. I don't rely on men, and I don't rely on the Law family. I can still live well on my own. Alexander probably didn't expect me to fight back. He froze for a moment. He sneered. Without the Law family, what can you do, Evelyn? Don't overestimate yourself. I know what you're thinking. You just want to get my attention. At those words, I was both angry and amused. This man seemed like he didn't understand a word I was saying. Get his attention? Does he even deserve it? I grabbed an egg from the basket and threw it at him. He wasn't prepared, so the egg hit him square in the face. Aw, Alexander! Helen screamed when she saw this. Alexander closed his eyes for a moment, wiped the egg yolk off his face, then raised his hand toward me. I quickly stepped back, coldly snorting. What? Mr. Law? Going to hit me now? Alexander paused, took a deep breath. Evelyn, you've got some nerve. If that's the case, you can stay here for the rest of your life. With that, he stormed off. With the main character gone, the onlookers who had come to watch the spectacle naturally followed suit. Helen was the last to leave. As she walked past me, she softly said, "Evelyn, thank you. If it weren't for you, Alexander would never have seen how good I am." I didn't respond. The things she proudly flaunted were exactly the things I had long since discarded as trash. If she liked to pick up garbage, then she could take it all with her. Chapter 3. After everyone left, I carried the basket of vegetables and walked toward the house across from the Law family. Inside, the man was on a conference call. When he saw me, he muted his microphone and smiled as he took the basket from my hands. "I told you to wait until I finished. Wasn't it tiring?" I shook my head and followed him into the kitchen. I bought the vegetables and took some photos for content. "You're cooking, so it's fair." Suddenly, the man stopped, and I, caught off guard, bumped right into him. He turned around, bent down, and pinched my nose. "Little rascal, when have you ever cooked for us?" I heard some noise outside. What happened? Thinking of what just occurred, I curled my lips. Alexander came and said he was going to take me back. I gave him a little lesson. Upon hearing this, the man furrowed his brows. "That Alexander kid, you teaching him a lesson isn't bad. He needs to know the boundaries." I looked at him with an arched brow. "Just like that?" He smiled faintly, suddenly lifting me by the waist and carrying me toward the bedroom. "I know all about your past with him, although I'm a little jealous. What matters is that you're with me now." As he spoke, his lips were already close to mine. His kiss was fiery and passionate, melting me little by little, making it impossible for me to resist. I saw Alexander again a month later, at Maria's engagement party. She was my best friend, and she had invited me specially to the countryside for her engagement. Unable to refuse her pleading, I reluctantly agreed. It was no surprise to me that I would see Alexander and Helen there. As soon as Maria saw them, she immediately pulled me behind her like a mother hen protecting her chick, leaving Dominic to greet them. Dominic was her fiancé and also Alexander's friend. She then dragged me to the corner. "Evelyn, I'm sorry. I forgot they would be here." I smiled and shook my head. Having spent so many years in the Law family, many of our social circles overlapped. It was normal for them to be there. "It's fine. I don't mind anymore," I reassured her. "After all, I'm already married." Maria froze, looking at me in disbelief. "You're married? When did that happen? How come I didn't know?" "Half a year ago." Maria stared at me for a long time, then suddenly burst out laughing. "You sly girl. I knew it. Someone as good as you could never cling to Alexander. A good bird chooses the right tree. That's the way to go." "Someone like Alexander? We're not interested." Laughing, her eyes suddenly reddened. I knew she was happy for me. When Helen first appeared, she had tried to persuade me, but I couldn't let go. I had been determined to crash into that brick wall. Now, I had let it go. After a brief cry, Maria shot me a playful glare. "Then why didn't you bring your husband to meet me? Or do you not consider me a good friend? He's on a business trip." I smiled apologetically. "He won't be back until later tonight. Next time, I'll invite him to dinner with us." Maria nodded with satisfaction. Suddenly, she grabbed my hand and pulled me to the center of the crowd, taking the microphone and drawing everyone's attention. With a radiant smile, she announced, "Everyone, I have another piece of good news to share." She pulled me to her side and introduced me with great seriousness. "This is my good friend, Evelyn. She's married. Let's all congratulate her." As soon as the words left her mouth, the room fell silent. Most of the people attending this engagement party were from our circle. Many knew that Alexander's fiancée was named Evelyn, but they hadn't heard that Alexander had gotten married. Maria, ever the one to stir things up, looked around and smiled. "What's the matter? My best friend is married and you're not happy?" Everyone snapped out of their daze and laughed in response. "How could we not be happy? We're so happy for you. Congratulations. May you have a lifetime of happiness and soon have children." Amid the well wishes, I kept a subtle smile and nodded. At this moment, Helen walked up to me with a glass of wine. her face full of concern. Evelyn, you've been living in the countryside for 2 years. Suddenly, you're married? Did those bad people from the countryside deceive you? I know you're still angry at Alexander for sending you away, but he was doing it for your own good. You're still young. Please don't act impulsively just because you're angry. Marriage is a big deal. You need to be cautious. Helen, don't you think you're being a bit too meddlesome? I interrupted her. I couldn't stand her. She obviously didn't like me, yet she always acted like she was looking out for me. Back when I was at the law household, she was the same. And then, slowly, I became the person no one in the law family liked, while she became known as the considerate and understanding one. After seeing this act so many times, it had become tiresome. Interrupted. Helen's eyes immediately turned red, and at just the right moment, Alexander walked up to us. Chapter 4. He looked at me for a long while before slowly speaking. Evelyn, know when to stop. After the banquet, I stood alone by the roadside waiting for a ride. Alexander's car stopped in front of me, his expression cold. Get in the car. I shook my head. No need. My husband will come pick me up. At my words, Alexander sneered. Evelyn, how long are you going to keep up this charade? You can fool others, but not me. Who in City A doesn't know that you liked me so much you'd be willing to die for me? Someone like you. Who would ever marry you? Get in the car, and I won't bring up the fact that you ran back to City A without permission. His tone was harsh. When he saw me still standing there unmoving, his brows furrowed, and a look of disgust appeared on his face. Did you really get sugar daddy, Ed? Who's so blind? At his words, I smiled lightly. Mr. Alexander, have you ever been sugar daddy, Ed? Otherwise, why would you think that everyone you see is being taken care of like that? Only people with dirty minds think everyone else is dirty. Alexander's expression turned sour, as though he had just eaten a fly. He glared at me with fury. Evelyn, what happened to you? Seeing his heartbroken expression, anyone might think he was truly heartbroken, but I hadn't changed at all. I had always been sharp-tongued since I was a child, and my mother used to scold me for it. When I joined the law family, my temperament didn't change. I remember the first time I argued with someone at the law family. Alexander had just laughed from the sidelines. He said, girls should be tough, so no one can bully them. But when Helen appeared, he began to complain that I wasn't graceful or gentle enough. So, I just suppressed all my sharp edges. Now, I refused to change for him any longer. Helen had been sitting quietly in the passenger seat, listening to Alexander and me. Seeing his reaction, a flicker of amusement flashed in her eyes. Then, with a knowing tone, she said, Evelyn, how can you speak to Alexander like that? He's only doing what he thinks is best for you. Shut up. I rolled my eyes and looked at her with exasperation. If you don't have anything useful to say, then don't speak. What's it to you how I talk to Alexander? Helen was taken aback, her expression awkward. At that moment, a pink sports car pulled up behind us and honked its horn. Without even looking at them, I walked over confidently and got into the car. The engine roared, and even through the sound, I could hear Alexander's angry shout. That night, I received a strange phone call. I picked up the phone and realized it was Diego, Alexander's good friend. Evelyn, what are you up to? I turned down the music. Doing prenatal education. There was a brief pause on the other end, and Diego asked in confusion, prenatal education? Is that the kind of prenatal education I'm thinking about? I nodded. Yeah, that's probably it, Diego replied. Don't joke around. You and Alexander haven't seen each other in so long. How could you possibly be pregnant? I answered indifferently. The baby isn't his. Diego's voice raised a notch. No way. You're really married and pregnant? I asked in return. What? Can't I get married and pregnant? It's not that. It's just, you and Alexander have always had an engagement, and you've always liked him. How could you suddenly get married? You must be lying. I smiled at his words. Why did everyone think I was lying? Marriage is a big deal. Why would I lie about something like that? I really am married. I paused. And when we have the wedding, I'll invite you to come. Just as I finished speaking, There was a burst of noise on the other end of the line. Then, the phone hung up. I didn't take it to heart. Most of Alexander's friends, 9 out of 10, always thought I wasn't good enough for him, even when he treated me the best. When Helen showed up, they thought even less of me. I'd heard them talk badly about me many times. Soon, another call came in. It was from Alexander. I could tell by the number. I answered the call, and before I could say anything, he spoke first. Evelyn, get rid of the baby. I couldn't help but find it a little funny. Are you out of your mind? Alexander's voice grew more furious. Evelyn, I said get rid of the baby. His voice was loud enough to be heard from a distance. Even without speakerphone, I pulled the phone away from my ear and coldly said, if you have nothing else to say, I'm hanging up. Didn't you hear what I just said? Where are you right now? Having known Alexander for so many years, I was used to his tantrums. So, as I listened to his yelling, I felt no emotion at all. The questioning on the other end continued. Suddenly, someone grabbed the phone from behind. Then, I heard Mario's deep, magnetic voice. Evelyn's going to sleep now. Whatever you have to say, you can talk about it another day. Without waiting for a response, he hung up the call. I turned to look, and our gazes met. His eyes were filled with a smile. He picked me up effortlessly, and I wrapped my arms around his neck. In the scent of his breath, I could smell the shower gel he used. It was my favorite peach fragrance. I nuzzled against him, and his voice, still smiling, rang in my ears. Looks like I'll have to try harder, or your prenatal education will go to waste. I chuckled. I was just joking. Mario lowered his head and kissed my lips. His voice muffled. Soon, it won't be a joke anymore. 3 days later, I returned to the Law family home. Mario and I went to visit Grandpa Law. It was Grandpa Law who had brought me to the Law family all those years ago, and he treated me like his own granddaughter ever since. However, his health had declined significantly in recent years, and he often went abroad for treatment. He had returned this time to celebrate his 80th birthday, and I heard that after the celebration, he'd be going abroad again for further treatment. After seeing Grandpa Law, Mario received a phone call and went to the back garden, leaving me standing in the corner, waiting for him. I thought you wouldn't come back, came a voice from behind. I turned to find Alexander standing there, looking at me with a dark expression. I ignored his mood and smiled. It's Grandpa's birthday. Of course. I had to come back, and I brought my husband to meet him. Alexander glared at me coldly. What? Are you trying something new now? You've been in the countryside all these years, and now you're back trying to piss me off again? I'm telling you, don't dream. I'm never going to marry you. I'll go to Grandpa and tell him to break off the engagement. As he said this, he glanced at my stomach. Just get out of the Law family with your bastard child. I never want to see you again. Before I could respond, a calm, jade-like voice interrupted. Oh, looks like the Law family's eldest young master is all-powerful. I didn't know the Law family was under your control. Alexander froze and turned to face the speaker. Uncle. Mario walked up to me, took my hand, and looked at his big nephew in front of him. I wouldn't dare be called your uncle. You're the one who dares to kick your aunt out. Alexander's face turned pale, his gaze fixed on the hand I was holding Mario's with, his voice trembling slightly. You're saying she's my aunt, Evelyn, and you? Mario glanced at him lightly, his voice turning colder. She's your aunt. Is that how you address her? Alexander's face was ashen, but he quickly regained his composure. Even during the family dinner later, he acted as if nothing had happened, his expression calm, as if he hadn't been affected by the earlier exchange. Chapter 5. The birthday banquet ended. Mario went to get the car while I waited for him at the door. During the wait, Alexander suddenly appeared and dragged me into a secluded corner. His gaze was cold as he gritted his teeth and said, Evelyn, this is intentional, isn't it? You and your little uncle are just putting on a show for me, aren't you? I looked at him. You're overthinking. If I were pretending, I wouldn't have come here with him. After all, due to the divorce between Alexander's parents, the two families had been on bad terms for years. If it weren't for me, Mario wouldn't have voluntarily come here. Moreover, Grandpa Law had always treated me very well. I could never deceive him. Alexander knew all this. But right now, he was too angry to think clearly. He sneered. So, you're trying to get back at me, huh? You're getting back at me for leaving you in the countryside for Helen, aren't you? Evelyn, I told you before, once you behave, you'll become Mrs. Alexander. What are you doing now? Looking into his bloodshot eyes, I suddenly thought of the day Helen first came to the Law family. Alexander had promised me back then. He said even if there were 10,000 Helens, none could compare to me. He said I would always be his little princess, the one he loved the most. But later, for Helen's sake, he criticized me time and again. And in the end, he even hit me. I still remember the crisp sound of the jade bracelet shattering on the floor, just like my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. I looked away, focusing on the vibrant flowers not far away. Alexander, from the moment you shielded Helen, you should have known we had no future. I, Evelyn, am not a magnanimous person. I can't just forget the past. So, our relationship, like the shattered jade bracelet, can never return to what it once was. Now, Mario and I are married. You're with Helen. So let's just go our separate ways. A complicated expression flashed across Alexander's face. He fell silent for a moment, then said, Evelyn, why are you so heartless? I do care about you. Really, I just feel sorry for Helen. Her parents are both gone. His voice trembled slightly, as if he were trying to control his emotions. I could only sneer at his words. Helen losing her parents was tragic. But what about me? I lost my parents at 5, and my grandfather, who I relied on, passed away when I was 10. Wasn't I pitiful? How biased could someone be to say such things? If he truly cared about me, how could he have left me in the countryside for 3 years, completely ignoring me? I looked at him and softly asked, Alexander, do you remember why I came to the Law family? Alexander's body stiffened, and his face turned pale. He opened his mouth as if to explain but ultimately said nothing. I didn't look at his face. I simply rolled up my sleeve and showed him the scars on my arm. You might not know this, but when you sent me to the countryside, I suffered from depression and even tried to commit suicide several times. There were many times when I thought I couldn't go on, but luckily, I survived and eventually met someone who truly loves me. Just then, the headlights of Mario's car flashed from afar. He's here. I'll leave now. Alexander stayed silent. I pulled my arm free from his grip and turned to leave. Once the car was a good distance away, I received a message from Alexander. Evelyn, you promised me you'd only marry me in this lifetime. Yes, I had said that. I said that when I loved Alexander the most. Back then, I thought I would marry him one day. I thought he would only love me in this life. So, I made that promise with all my heart. But now, I've broken that promise. Because it was you, Alexander, who turned away first. I didn't reply. I casually tossed my phone onto the back seat. Mario glanced at me from the corner of his eye and asked, was that Alexander? I nodded lightly. Yeah, that guy has been out of line for years, thinking everything belongs to him. He'll figure it out eventually, Mario said. Hearing this, I smiled and looked at him. What? No jealousy? This guy wasn't exactly the generous type. He had once forced me to throw away everything I brought from the Law family when I was sent to the countryside. Mario didn't say anything, but soon he found a secluded spot to park the car, while he kissed me on the lips. His voice low and threatening, he said, who told me I love you? Then I have to accept everything about you, including your past. Besides, you're my wife now. I won't let you go. I smiled and kissed him back. Not only would he never let me go, but I wouldn't let him go either. Chapter 6. Since that day, I hadn't seen Alexander again. Maria invited me to go shopping, and as we walked, she couldn't help but complain about him. Alexander is a madman. His brain isn't quite right. I heard from Dominic that the night I got engaged, for some reason, Alexander suddenly went and destroyed a bar. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he had a crush on me. She laughed as she spoke, and after her laugh subsided, she continued, it's been a while since I've seen Alexander. A few days ago, Helen even asked Dominic if he'd seen him. Do you think he ran off somewhere? I casually slid my fingers over a row of clothes. Who knows? That evening, I was cornered at the door of my house. Alexander, reeking of alcohol, blocked my path. Evelyn, I had a nightmare last night. I dreamed you got married. And you married my little uncle. You have to tell me it's all a lie, right? You promised you'd marry me. You said you'd only marry me. How could you marry someone else? I looked at him and took out my phone to call Mario. Just as the call connected, he snatched the phone from my hand and smashed it onto the ground. With bloodshot eyes, he yelled, Evelyn, tell me you only love me. Tell me you'll only marry me. Say it. Say that you and Mario are just lies. That it's all fake, right? He slowly sank to his knees in front of me, his tone submissive, as if begging. This version of Alexander was someone I had never seen before. He looked like he really loved me. If this had happened before, I would have held him in my arms and cried. But now, things had changed. I looked down at him coldly and said, Alexander, if you want to play the role of the deep, loving man, go find Helen. I don't need it. He lowered his head, and I couldn't see his expression. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Evelyn, I know I was wrong. I went to the countryside these past few days and saw all the places you lived in for 3 years. I even met the psychologist you used to see. I know I was wrong. If you could, would you give me a chance to make up for the pain I've caused you all these years? I can take you to a place where no one knows us. Just the two of us together. I'll make you the happiest woman in the world. Please, Evelyn. Hearing him call me Evelyn, I felt a wave of dizziness. Since Helen came into the picture, he hadn't called me Evelyn. He always used my full name. But now, he said it again, and I felt nothing but indifference. No, I said. It's over between us. Just like my jade bracelet. It's long been broken. After saying that, I tried to walk past him. He grabbed my hand, but said nothing. I could feel his hand trembling slightly, but I ignored him and started smiling as I saw someone walking toward me. Mario walked over with a stern face. He first pulled Alexander's hand away from my arm, then yanked the man off the ground, one punch after another. Each punch landed with a sickening thud. When Mario finally stopped, Alexander's face was bruised and swollen. Alexander, for your sake as my nephew, I'll let you off this time, but don't ever let me see you again, and don't you dare come near my wife. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. After saying that, Mario wiped his hands clean, walked over, and took my hand to head home. Alexander, on the ground, looked like a piece of discarded rag, motionless. Chapter 7. That day, Mario kept me busy for a long time, and Alexander never came to find me again. The next time I saw him was at a seminar. He looked gaunt, and Helen was by his side. I nodded politely at them and then went off to find my seat. As I left, I could feel his gaze lingering on me. During the break, Helen found me. Evelyn, now that you're married to Alexander's little uncle, could you please stay away from him? Stop trying to get close to him every chance you get. All right? Do you know what he's been through these past few days? He's been willing to throw his life away for you. I raised my eyes to meet her gaze. She was still as self-righteous as ever, as insufferable as always. I coldly said, Miss Helen, what he chooses to do is none of my business. Besides, I was invited here by the organizers. I don't have that much influence to control their decisions. This seminar was organized by the government, and only people who had made contributions in their fields were invited. If Helen wasn't a fool, she should know I wouldn't be invited here just by chance. Hearing this, her expression froze, and she clearly realized the truth. She hesitated for a moment, wanting to continue speaking, but I'm not Alexander. I wouldn't indulge her. I directly followed up. Also, I'm Alexander's little aunt, and since you're his friend, that makes me your elder. Didn't anyone teach you how to speak to your elders? Upon hearing this, her face stiffened. It wasn't that she didn't know, but she had gotten used to it, used to putting me down, which is why she spoke so recklessly. She bit her lip, hesitated for a long while, but still didn't call me little aunt, and after seeing my smile, she gritted her teeth and said, Evelyn, what are you so smug about? Isn't it just because of Mario that you're here? What's so special about that? Don't think I don't know. You're marrying Mario because he has more money, right? I didn't respond. Instead, I looked behind her. Alexander, you came at the right time. Take her away quickly. Helen froze, and when she turned around, she saw Alexander's dark expression. She panicked, opened her mouth to explain, but before she could speak, Alexander yanked her by the arm and dragged her toward the exit of the venue. Watching her leave, I couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. I regretted that she didn't get to see me stand on stage as an outstanding representative to give a speech. She didn't know that I didn't need to rely on a man. I am my own support. During the second half of the seminar, the organizers invited me to give a speech. From the moment I stood up, I could feel a pair of eyes fixed on me, following me all the way to the stage. I didn't look for those eyes. Instead, I began my speech. Hello, everyone. I'm Evelyn. As I finished the last sentence, the audience erupted in warm applause. I smiled faintly at the crowd. Then, by chance, our eyes met. In his gaze, there was something I had never seen before: awe, admiration. I pretended not to see it and quietly turned my head. When the seminar ended, Alexander fought his way through the crowd and stood in front of me. He looked at me for a long time before slowly speaking. Evelyn, I never expected you to be so capable now. I looked at him. I have to thank you for that. 3 years ago, I was sent to the countryside, alone and helpless. In the first year, I fell into depression and even tried to end my life. The last time I was hospitalized after a suicide attempt, the person in the bed next to me loved to take videos. She said she wanted to capture all the beautiful things in the world so that her time here wouldn't be in vain. In that moment, I suddenly had an epiphany, and I began recording the beautiful things around me through videos. Through these videos, I learned about many beautiful, intangible cultural heritages. They were also trying not to be forgotten, trying to make the most of what was left, just like me, as I struggled to find the meaning of my future. So, intangible cultural heritage started to appear in my videos. At first, I just didn't want them to be forgotten, because to forget them meant they would disappear. Unexpectedly, after the videos were released, they garnered a lot of attention, and I became a small but growing video blogger. A year later, I met Mario. He was ill and came back to the countryside to recover. At that time, I was still living in the old house of the Law family and was recording some daily footage. During a snowstorm, he suddenly appeared right in front of my camera. Noticing my camera, he didn't try to avoid it. Instead, he smiled. He said, "You're the video blogger Evening Breeze, right? I'm Mario. I've wanted to meet you for a long time." Later, he accompanied me all over the country, experiencing many different intangible cultural heritages. While producing a piece on phoenix crowns, he proposed to me. Thinking back to those days, I couldn't help but smile slightly. Chapter 8. Seeing my smile, Alexander seemed momentarily lost in thought. His expression was a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. I didn't know what he was thinking, nor did I care. I tucked my hair behind my ear, ready to leave. As I was about to walk past him, he suddenly stretched his hand out in front of me. Instinctively, I took a step back and, only after standing still, realized what he was holding. It was a jade bracelet. It looked about 70% like the one my parents had left me. He said, "This jade bracelet is my compensation to you. Do you think it looks a lot like yours?" His tone still carried a trace of hope, but my attention wasn't on the bracelet. Instead, it was on the scar on his wrist, a scar that looked eerily similar to mine. Noticing my gaze, he gave a bitter smile. "I guess, after all, there's one thing we both share." I looked up at him. Then, I sighed. "Alexander, you should know this. Our relationship ended 3 years ago. Everything you're doing now only serves to trouble me. No matter how hard it is for you to believe, I'm already married. So, please, don't show up in front of me again, okay?" With each word I spoke, Alexander's face turned paler. Once I finished speaking, I didn't look at him and walked past him without a second glance. Behind me, I heard the sound of the jade bracelet hitting the ground, followed by suppressed sobs. After that day, I never saw Alexander again. Even when I visited Grandpa Law at the Law family home, I never ran into him. Helen disappeared as well. Later, I found out that Helen had moved out of the Law family house, and it was Alexander's decision. Moreover, Alexander had severed all contact with Helen. Helen had been searching for Alexander during this time, but he had been avoiding her at all costs. Because of this, Helen came to see me a few times, but each time, she would only be there for a few minutes before someone came and forcibly took her away. I asked Mario, and he said it wasn't him. I thought that the days would just go on like this, but I never imagined that one day I would hear news about Alexander in such a way. His brother called me, his voice full of anger. They said that for the past 6 months, he had been drowning in alcohol, barely sober at all. But 2 days ago, he suddenly woke up in the middle of the night, shouting that he had to find me. In the end, he got into a car accident. He survived, but his legs were badly injured, and he might never be able to stand again. We tried to stop him, but we couldn't. Diego's voice was hoarse. He was crying, saying that tomorrow was your birthday, and that he had already missed 3 years. He couldn't miss it again this year. He cried so bitterly that it broke our hearts. We should have stopped him earlier. Evelyn, he did all of this for you. I leaned into Mario's embrace, gently touched my stomach, and silently hung up the phone. Mario bent down and kissed my hair, comforting me. This isn't your fault. I knew that. I just felt that it was all a bit absurd. When someone is right in front of you, you don't cherish them, and when they're gone, why pretend to be deeply emotional? Late-blooming love is worth nothing. I've always understood this principle. That's why I never went to see him, not even once. Half a month later, in the middle of the night, I received a message. It was from Alexander. Evelyn, I'm sorry. I didn't reply, because, for me, the story between him and me had already come to an end. From then on, spring and autumn would no longer intertwine, and wind and moon would have no more relevance.